All right, guys, welcome back to the Make or Break show. We're hanging out with Lazy Guy DIY today. Mr. Adam calling in from Virginia. Man, excited to chat with you about DIY stuff, but also you, I think, have a really unique perspective with the folks here. I feel like you work with lots and lots of brands, and so excited to get into that whole world with you. But man, thanks so much for jumping on and chatting with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about it. I love talking shop.
Yeah, me too. Because when we responded back with that email, like, hey, we should talk about some of this stuff. I was like, yes, we definitely should. So, I mean, not that we don't want. I do want to talk about the stuff that you make, but the business around it, I think, will be super interesting for people, just to hear kind of how that stuff works. But
yeah, it's kind of a different journey than most, I guess. So, but yeah, it's outside the woodworking, but yeah, I think it's fun. It's what I do.
Yeah, and if people are wanting to do this more full time, I feel like the stuff that we're going to get into is pretty core to it. Like it's really hard to get a channel of 2 million people and just do AdWords. Like you can get there a lot faster. I feel like doing some of the stuff that you're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Very cool. Well, I would love to actually we'll do your background a little bit just so people kind of have some context. And on just the woodworking side of things, was that something you got into later, or were you always kind of building growing up?
I kind of went on hiatus. So I grew up with kind of a real estate family, and my dad would buy houses and we'd flip them. And I kind of got my carpentry skills back then. And I was like the guy holding the ladder and complaining and like paying me and give me a Sheetz hot dog or something. And that's kind of how I got my start with tools. And then I took a little break. And then when I was in college, I took a track that was basically art school. To ramp up my business degree and my grades. And I actually took industrial design and started designing furniture there and loved it. Like one of the most ambitious projects I've ever done was probably still then. It was a wardrobe that was 6 feet wide and it would collapse down to 3 feet wide. So made that as my main project. And then I didn't design anything for years. And went off, graduated, and kind of had a business background.
Yeah.
It kind of ties into, it seems like it's random where I went at the time, but it all kind of adds up now. But I went into the mortgage business, and I had a background in business-to-business sales, and I was dealing with brokers and everything. And it definitely, I was doing outside sales and inside sales, and it definitely translates over to what I'm doing now. But I wasn't doing any woodworking or anything until my wife was like, let's build a chicken coop. We can have chickens in the city now.
Right.
And she's like, if you build a chicken coop, I'll buy you an Xbox. I was like, okay. So
it's a good trade.
Exactly. Except for I spent like a lot more on the chicken coop. It ended up being one of these massive things. And I blogged about it on Chicken Coop website, and people loved it. And I was like, yeah, I got to put this on a website. I'm going to make my own website. And that's kind of where everything started kicking off from there. And I started making my own projects, and it took off from there in about 2016 or so. So
crazy.
Like I said, it was a weird journey to get there, and a lot of time in between. So I'm sort of a late bloomer with it, but man, I'm jumping in right now.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people will say they had like a unique journey. Like I feel like everyone's a little bit different how they get to it, and like everyone's background, I feel like brings a super unique perspective and kind of a unique twist. But chicken coops, so when you said 2016, so would that build like before then a little bit?
Yeah, so I started that like maybe late 2014, 2015.
Okay.
And then it just it took a while to build. I designed my own plans, started learning how to use SketchUp. I think I started in Paint actually, and I designed the thing in Paint, which is terrible. Never do that. And then figured out SketchUp at that point.
That's crazy.
And put plans out there too for it. So this was before I even knew about like woodworking blogging or anything as well.
Yeah. So where did the Lazy Guy DIY, where'd that come from?
Well, it was a last minute change. I actually had a different name set up. And I mean, my wife jokes that I'm like a 98%er where I'll get like 98% done. And then I just stop and get bored and just completely lazy at finishing things. And my family always jokes. And then my wife's family, they always say poor Adam all the time. Adam has to do this and whatever else. And then my wife just thinks I'm lazy. And that's honestly where it came from. And I was like, you know what? Lazy Guy DIY, that's perfect. It's approachable, it's friendly, and I think it doesn't intimidate anybody.
Yeah, and it's got a great ring to it.
Oh
Definitely
yeah.
super memorable. I'm the exact same way. Like, there's lots of places where there's trim that I still need to put up. There's like just one left that I need to finish. Like, we built like a bookcase, and I still need to put like the molding around the top, and it's been there for like a year and a half. I'm like, I don't want to. I'm tired of this, but
You still have plenty of time. A year and a half. You have at least 5 years to finish that, so you're okay.
I know. Yes, I was like, we'll finish this stuff like when we sell the house, and we have like people need to see it finished so they can pay us. But
Exactly.
so, how did you come across the greater, I guess, woodworking community?
So I actually started out as a home improvement website.
Okay.
And even though I built the chicken coop, I was like, this is going to be. I'm in Richmond, so Young House Love with John and Sherry is huge here. They only live a couple miles away, and it's funny I don't run into them, but I'll see them at conferences and such. But that was sort of the inspiration. It was like, we're going to do a kind of like a DIY website. And I went to a conference. I went to a blogger conference called Haven in 2016, only a few months after I launched my website. And it just so happened I sat at the right table with the tool company. They're like, we want to give you tools. And I was like, okay. I had no post. I had no followers on social media, really, like 200 or so. And I was like, okay, well, I got these tools. I'm going to start making stuff.
Yeah.
And started making plans. I was doing retail build commission work to start with. I did a couple things for some local cycle studios, like reception desk and barn doors and everything.
Oh, cool.
And those did really well. I found out when I started putting plans out there, and that just made me completely switch what I was going to do. I still do home improvement projects here as well on the website, because it is called Lazy Guy DIY. But I mean, woodworking and obviously tool reviews, if you're watching the video, that's my big bread and butter as far as website content these days.
Yeah, that's cool. What was that first company that you worked, the tool company?
It was Ryobi.
Oh, Ryobi. Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah, they were.
Go ahead. Sorry.
They were at the Haven conference. They used to be a main sponsor there, and it's all women there. It was at the time. There was only, I think, like Brad Rodriguez and Jameson from Rogue Engineer and a couple other guys were there. May have been like 5 or 6. I actually reached out to them all ahead of time. I'm like, I'm a little nervous about this. I hear it's all women. Is there any reason I should go? Am I going to stand out in the good way or the bad way? And they like, yeah, just go. It's great. And I'm tall. I'm 6'5", so I'm standing out there, and I clearly stood out in a sea of all the the decor bloggers and everything. And it worked to my advantage, obviously, because I caught the eye of Ryobi, and that opened up the door to the next brands and home and everybody else for me.
Yeah. So I've recently been getting more into the Pinterest side of things, and because of that, like, I'm going deeper into more the DIY blogs, like that whole world, like the Haven stuff. And we're doing the same thing, but it's like the approach to it is different, coming from like maybe more of the maker woodworking community side of things.
Well, it's really interesting because because that's the community I was exposed to begin with. I always say to always look at what like the decor bloggers are doing, because there's more of them than there are woodworkers, and they are so cutthroat on all their strategies that it translates so well to woodworking, because a lot of people aren't doing this stuff yet, and all their mailers, all their email, all their roundups and stuff. I mean, there's a Facebook group that I'm on that it's just bam, 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 bam. They all support each other, but it's all really cutthroat.
Yeah.
But it's the information is amazing, so it's a great way to kind of get ahead of the curve.
Yeah. So were you when did this switch to more than like just a hobby and like, I'm going to put stuff up because I'm building a chicken coop?
It honestly, I was like, people are paying attention to this for the website when I launched it, and it wasn't as many. I thought it was just going to be my family that was going to pay attention, and I started seeing. Actually, you know what it is? It was the first. This is a good segue, unintentional. The first Builders Challenge, which was the online contest. I entered it and built something and did pretty well for it, and the community really embraced just you being a part of it, and that kind of turned my eye to like, this woodworking thing is kind of the way to go. And then that definitely made me take the step to pay a couple $100 to go to that conference. Cause like, there's definitely something to this. And I feel like, to me, my website is my priority, the blog, because I like to write. I can knock out posts in a matter of minutes, and there's not a lot of long form posting from guys out there. So there's tutorials, there's videos and stuff, but there wasn't anybody at the time telling a story quite as much in the woodworking and DIY community. And people related to that regardless of whether they were woodworkers or whatnot, because they just went to see the story, which is the feedback I got. And I was like, okay, this is my outlet that I've been looking for.
Yeah. So when did you start the website then?
It was March 2016.
Okay, so still, so right after. Did you know like you wanted it to be like a full out business then too? Like you're like, I'm building this up to actually do this for real.
Yeah, I was fairly strategic about it and had looked at a lot of different sites and what I wanted to do. And I knew I still have a full-time job actually, on top of everything else that I do. But I knew that I needed an outlet, and I knew that it was going to be the potential to a good revenue stream. Yeah. So I made some choices and invested in myself for it, and it's paid off so far. But I mean, that was the big thing, is that we had a new family starting to grow. We just had a daughter, and as the desk job, like it's kind of like office space, just wasn't going to cut it. And I knew that this was going to be the next hustle to get stuff moving. Yeah.
So what's your full-time job now?
So I'm actually a project manager for a mortgage company and a bank, and I've been there for over 10 years. And I do Excel sheets, I do efficiency analyses, I work contracts also with vendors. So a lot of things actually apply over there, but it is dull as can be.
Right.
And I joke that it fuels my sarcasm for my website and everything else. Because if I've been off of work and I try to write something, it just doesn't come. But if I've been at work and it's so boring and so slow, I mean, I can pop out posts like that.
Yeah. That's funny that drives the personality, like especially through writing, or really through anything. People connect to the personality even more than maybe the project and the folks that will they'll stick around. But on the brand side of things, so what did that look like? You were working some with Ryobi, then were you just like cold outreaching, or like, hey, I work with Ryobi, would you guys be interested? Like what were you kind of thinking about at that point?
Yeah, I'd obviously come back from Haven, and I was like, everybody's going to work with me. Because I had my call with Ryobi, and they were like, yeah, we want to send you some tools and check this out. And I was like, well, this was easy. And so I just started cold calling, and that's with my sales background, made a big difference with that. And if anybody says no, it doesn't really get me down on it. But I kind of went in with a plan, and actually Wall Controls, pegboards behind me here, was the first brand that I ever reached out to.
Oh, cool.
And again, with no followers, and I just said, hey, I've got the shop that I'm going to convert. And I basically came back from Haven, and I had a terrible mushy pegboard in my shop, and any of the tools that I bought had fallen off the wall.
Right.
And I looked it up, and I was like, there's got to be like a metal pegboard company. And I found them. They're in Atlanta. And I reached out, and I actually did a thing in SketchUp. I mocked up the whole thing, and I was like, I'd love to put all these tools on my channel and everything. And they're like, well, we really aren't going to work with any influencers or anything. And then they agreed to it. And now I'm actually employed by them also. And it's been a great relationship with them. I get to test out things. I run their social media for them.
Okay.
Their ambassador team. And I mean, the guy, Richard, it's a family owned company. He and I talk every day. And it's all because of just basically a cold call that I did, just looking for something on the internet, send an email, and then just start talking to them.
Yeah. So, all right. So you said you did the cold call, and initially they said no, and now you're like semi-employed by them. Like, did you just keep coming back? Like, hey, here's a different idea. Like, or do you have any like just tips for folks if they do cold calls and they get that no?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is I did not ask for money. And then I am teaching a class at WorkbenchCon this year too. That's the navigating brands for micro influencers. And one of the big things, and you're going to hear from people all the time, to say, go out and grab money and do this. But honestly, you should be going out and grabbing a relationship. And that's something I learned from working with brokers when I was in the mortgage business before was quick wins get you nowhere. And it's always play for the long term and make these relationships. And then he and I just chatted about stuff. I just said, hey, look, this is what I really want to do. I think it'll look good. I know I don't have a big channel right now, but I know it's going to get some play on Ryobi's website. So I think there's a good opportunity here, and I try to add value that I didn't have, but anybody anywhere else basically. And I was like, you can have 5 videos, you can post those, embed those on your website, and just really try to make that first connection. And then he and I just kept talking after I had my first stuff up. They didn't have social media at the time other than Facebook. They didn't have Instagram. And then it was 2 years later or so. I'd gotten a few products, and we just kept up the conversation every few months. But he asked me to come visit him and said, hey, we want you to run our social media. I know you've talked about the importance of having an Instagram presence at the time. And we just can't dedicate to it. And then so they hired me on to run their social media from there.
That's cool. I love the idea. So you mentioned that one of the things that you could use was the fact that this is going to be exposed through Ryobi, I guess through like the blog post that you were doing, and that whole, because I hear especially a lot of people talk about like maybe they'll reach out to a bigger media outlet and say, hey, if I get these folks to agree, like, well, can I publish this? So almost leveraging other folks' network to put out. I've never even thought about it on the tool partnership side of things. That's super smart.
So I actually have content contributors to my website now, and these two guys, they have smaller channels and smaller websites, and I met them at different conferences, and I like their style. And I told them, I was like, absolutely leverage my website to get you, just say, because you're going to be putting your stuff on here. And I was like, I can talk to them or whatnot, as long as there's no conflicts. And they're using it now to get deals as well. And there's so many different ways that you can approach brands. And I was talking to a guy a few weeks ago, and he says it doesn't matter what your following count is if you have good quality content, because basically you can sell that content to brands also and work with them that way. Videos, photos, whatever else. And that's still cheaper than having them hire a crew.
Yeah. I've definitely seen that happen several times. At least for me too. It's like we can't do money, we can do a trade, but just the trade is for not your exposure, but just the content you're going to create.
Yep.
That's cool. So going back, you mentioned getting into the woodworking side of the online world was through the Builders Challenge, and then you run the Builders Challenge. Is that right now, or?
So I'm one of the partners with it. It was originally it was a couple women that started it, and there was only 34 people that participated in this thing in the first year. When you hear the numbers and as many people as they kind of talked about it at the time, it's crazy that just 34 people did it. And I kind of took off. I watched it after that. And then somebody had asked me to join. They were doing a build team where you kind of show off and answer questions. And I came on that way. And I just saw good opportunity that wasn't being leveraged at the time. And Rachel from Desert Woodworks, she's the owner of the contest these days and challenge. And she and I are basically partners on it. And I was like, we have got to be leveraging these brands that want some, there's value here, basically, that brands want to work with you. We can offer great prizes to people. It's a great community thing, and it's blown up. And I think somebody said, and we were checking, it's the biggest woodworking contest online right now.
Yeah.
Because we have, there's I think 3,000 to 4,000 people that subscribe to it.
Okay.
There's not that many that participate in it each time, but there are that many people that are getting the plans and checking it out, and they alternate if they're going to work on it or not. But it's massive these days.
Yeah. For people that maybe they're not familiar with it, kind of how does it work?
Yeah. So basically, everybody signs up for a mystery build, and they have no idea what it's going to be. You're not obligated. You don't have to pay. But you can win prizes, and they're usually pretty good prizes. We usually have a couple $1,000s worth of prizes from major brands. And so then on the same day, everybody gets the mystery plans that are designed by somebody within the community or a brand or somebody. And then they have 3 weeks to put their own spin on it. And then at the end, we have guest judges that rotate, so there's no bias or anything. And we pick winners. So we're getting ready to hit our 9th season now in May. And then we have some cool stuff lined up too. But it's crazy. how the community embraces it, because everybody loves sharing everybody's builds. And then it gets really competitive, obviously, too, because you see people starting to post what their progress is, and then people sandbag and they don't want to show anything till the last minute, and because they don't want to influence anything. But there's been some huge names involved in this as far as judging and involvement. And I know that at the end of this year for season 10, we've got a huge name involved with it that we're pretty excited about. But I mean, it's fun. We're doing a mini challenge right now that I'm actually working on stuff. It's epoxy and resin, because everybody does epoxy and resin these days. But it's just a 1 week challenge, and it's got to fit within a 24 by 24 by 6 box. And that's the only parameter. It just has to have wood and resin or epoxy. And it kicked off this past weekend, and people are loving it. Yeah. So
that's cool. So the bigger challenges, how many guys do a year?
We do 2 main challenges a year.
Cool. Yep. Do you have a favorite?
So we do
like from the past, favorite challenge?
Absolutely. Well, slight bias, but we just did a bar cart, and I designed the bar cart. It was the first year that I actually designed it, and put the plans out there. But I love mid-century modern, and it was our first mid-century modern design. And just being able to see people do their own spin on what I designed, it's awesome. I mean, because you get people really protective about their own designs a lot of time, and they don't want anybody to remake their stuff.
Right.
But being able to see other people interpret your work and seeing it on a large scale is awesome. Just to see, I mean, your mind doesn't even go in some of the ways that these people do. And it really opens up as far as your creativity to be able to, like, okay, yeah, you see how people did this, they used that technique. So yeah, slight bias on my end, but it was awesome to see.
Yeah. I guess I did not make the connection, because I remember seeing a ton of bar carts starting to like pop up, and I was like, what are, like, maybe just a bunch of people want to drink or something. But that makes way more sense that was going on. I guess I just missed the hashtag when I was looking at the stuff. But that's cool. So as far as the side hustle, or however you want to call Lazy Guy DIY, like, is it like, where do you spend the majority of your time like these days?
So honestly, it's switched. I do not get as much shop time, and that has to do with having a second kid that's 1.
Oh yeah.
And the flexibility for that. So a majority of the time is between working with brands, setting up stuff long run, Builders Challenge related, because that's year round, recruiting brands, and setting up different things. And then I'm also been doing a lot of mentoring with people and helping people with contracts. And I'm actually going to do an influencer network this year, and I'm working on plans for that to connect people with brands as well. And so I do a lot of computer time because it's the easiest for me to do right now. But I kind of got the notion, the people that I started hanging out with early on are like I know you were talking about the tiers of YouTubers, where it's like this generation, and it's probably second generation of the bloggers and DIY bloggers, and they've been doing it for 7 or 8 years or so. Right. And you're starting to see that portion where it's like, what do I do after 40, or when the younger crowd maybe doesn't want to pay attention to me as much, and you could see the panic from people and trying to kind of find a way to diversify. And that's what I realized, that I love my woodworking stuff. I'm always going to do my woodworking stuff and release my plans, but I want to diversify more and be able to have a way to have, because at some point somebody's going to stop watching my channel.
Right.
And if I'm depending on this for an income, I need to find a way to make more money for my family. And then I love this as an outlet, and I don't want it to go away. And this gives me longevity in the industry as well.
Yeah. So specifically, you mentioned the influencer network, and I think you described it as like an agency for makers, which makes a ton of sense, because I'm like, I don't even know what brands to reach out for. I'm like, are there agents out there? Like, I do some stuff behind the scenes for like Bob Claggett, like I edit a couple of their podcasts, and so like I know he has like a particular agent, but I'm like, are there smaller? So it sounds like you're thinking of that, but for the small people.
Absolutely. And I mean, what it's come down, and a lot of it's come through Builders Challenge stuff, because I mean, it's a small industry in the scale of things, but I mean, I'm talking to the decision makers of brands from all the major companies, big and small, So I have those contacts now at this point, and they're always looking for things. And I try to pass stuff off to my peers. And I get tons of questions all the time about contracts from people. And it was one of those things where I've like I said, I've been doing quite a bit of mentoring, and I've had a couple of my peers really try to push me and to say, hey, you can really organize this. There's a need for it. You have the contacts, and it's funny because a lot of people joke around that everybody comes like I'm the master of secrets within the community, because everybody comes to me for like the secrets and what's going on, what's the new thing with this, who's doing that. And it's not that I'm intentionally prying, but it's that whole networking thing, keeping up communication and relationships with people. And I'm constantly talking to everyone, just casual conversations and whatnot. And it's really kind of given me a network that I think that I can help a lot of people, because I had help early on. I mentioned Brad before, but Brad from Fix This Build That helped me early on with a lot of stuff. And I'm in the notion this community is one that works better when everybody helps everyone rather than being competitive, because there's enough to go around, and there's ways to spread everything out. Like I said before, it's not about a cash grab, but everybody can pretty much be successful because there's enough audience that people are looking for stuff. There's enough people, whether they're selling things, whether it's plans or furniture or whatnot, there's enough of it out there that people can consume it everywhere.
Yeah. So what's that look like on, I guess the practical side of things? Like, are you going to open Lazy Guy DIY Agency Inc.? Like, either people can apply, or is it like what's it kind of the timeline for you?
It's going to be a different name and offshoot from there, but the kind of what I have envisioned is it'll be a website that almost, I wouldn't call it a networking website, but it's sort of like that, where I'll have influencers within my network. They'll be able to have their video of just kind of intro about them that brands can go and take a look at to get the background, sort of like a video bio.
Cool.
And then from there, links to other parts of their work that they're proud of. And then the brands are already reaching out to me usually anyway, if they have any sort of campaigns. So we'll sort of pitch that up there. If we have something where I know I can connect people, or we can drop it in a forum where we can connect those people, and then negotiating contracts as well, because as much as I would love to do it all for free and help everybody, then I would act as an agent or kind of help people through. And it's a win-win for everybody. I've already been negotiating contracts for friends, like I've said, for different things.
That's cool.
And everybody comes out happy, it seems like.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the Tinder for makers, but you're getting money. It's like what you're shooting for, or I guess those relationships. That's funny. I know, like in the podcasting world, like there's stuff like that for like ad buys. Like you basically put up like your show is what you do, and then companies put out campaigns, and then they take a piece off the top. But that's really smart because you're just narrowing down into this niche to help people out. So
cool. Absolutely. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. When are you, like, do you have a goal for starting it? Like, if people want to watch and kind of see what's coming?
I'm hoping 6 to 9 months, basically, because I have my hand in every pot right now, and it's hard to focus on everything, and I need to eliminate one of those threads, hopefully the desk job. Don't tell my job. But it's one of those things where I really need to dedicate and not do it half-assed, basically, and really dedicate to it. And just what's on the plate right now, it's going to slow me down until a couple months from now. So I'm by the end of the year for sure.
That's cool. That's real cool. Definitely be looking forward to watching how that goes. That's crazy. So I did want to hit on the like the ambassador side of things, especially since you like have been one, and then you run the program for wall control. Like, what do people get wrong when they're thinking about like, oh, I want to be a brand ambassador for like this company, and like, let me just get free tools?
And actually, I see there's a couple other brands that I work with as well, so I get to see quite a bit of stuff. But Wall Control is the one that I'm transparent on, that I run that account.
Okay, cool.
But I mean, don't do your pitch through Instagram. I mean, no one wants to read that, and it's that's not the decision maker usually that's getting that pitch. And you do a book, and you can tell they're copy and pasted a lot of times, and that you're just wasting your energy. You always want to get an email address and then kick that off. And if you can have calls, do that. But that's always the biggest issue is that initial contact is really bad sometimes. Like people will throw in cuss words and threaten you with, if you don't give me free product,
Oh, really?
I won't tell. Oh God, yeah,
That's
it's
crazy.
terrible. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, if you don't give me free product, I will tell people not to use this. And I have so much exposure, and they're like have like 500 followers or something
Right.
like that. And it's just there is because you see so many people getting free stuff. There's a sense of entitlement
Right.
these
Yeah.
days with influencers, and you really need to earn it. And that's not just by followers, but like we mentioned before, there's other ways to kind of grow that equity with brands, and that's a better way to go about it,
Yeah.
especially long term with everybody. And I laugh sometimes with just some of the things that I see, and it's and I've before people knew that I was running the wall control account, some people would send messages, and I would slide over to my DM, and I'd be like, "Hey, just so you know, I saw this. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to coach you for this,
Yeah.
and we're going to try again here." And it's just, I mean, you only get one chance to make a first impression,
Right.
and a lot of people flop.
Yeah. That's so on the wall control side of things, like what is it like how many inbound requests does like a company like that size like if people are trying to put context, like are they getting like hundreds a week or like what's it kind of look like from their end?
It's not that many. It ebbs and flows, but I'm trying to think how many ambassadors we have right now. We probably have about 30 ambassadors, but we'll get 10 to 20 requests a week.
Gotcha.
And there's a lot of interesting stuff out there too. Wall control is one of those. It's one of those products that it really appealed to me to work on this because it can be in kitchens, it can
Yeah.
be in shops. The Eastern Fleet in the Navy has them all in their
Seriously?
like their battleships. Yeah.
Good lord.
Um,
That's cool.
so and because it stays on, it doesn't rust or anything.
Right,
And
right.
you see a lot of military guys come out and love it, and so then they'll have it for their guns and stuff. And it's one of those things where it's like we get a lot of crafters that use stuff
Yeah.
too. So it's a very unique opportunity because a lot of people from a lot of different areas are interested in it and reach out. So it's not just the woodworkers. And I know we push a lot of woodworkers stuff because that group is, I mean, they're Instagram savvy compared to some of the other ones. And a lot of the other groups don't think about posting things like shop photos or pegboards or anything like that. But I have had with some other brands that have approached me to run their social media. Like I take a look at it, and you need to have a brand that you can build a community around. And some that I've looked at, I could have easily just said, "Hey, yeah, pay me. Let's do this. We'll try to get your following." But it was going to be very difficult to try to grow interest in some of their products, and it has to be one of those things that people were going to relate to and have a community around. And wall control is definitely one of those things, and
Cool.
I've loved it. I mean, small family
Yeah.
that owns it all, so it's cool. I love it.
That's fun. So the last thing I wanted to ask you about was so earlier you mentioned the kind of the DIY, the Haven. Those folks have been around and they've been doing it for longer. And so like in many ways they're like several years ahead of maybe the woodworking maker community. Like what if for folks that are wanting to do this as a business now and they're in that community, like what do they need to be thinking about? Like where does it make sense to focus on?
You mentioned Pinterest before. Pinterest is a huge referral for me. And I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket, but you see a lot of people from our community, woodworking community, that just start throwing up pins, and they're like, "Oh, it looks like this," and whatever else. And I still talk to a lot of people within the decor community, and I was like, "Well, this isn't working for me. What's wrong?" And they're like, "Well, the biggest issue is that your pins are manly.
Yeah.
You have a masculine looking site, and it's intimidating for the biggest user of Pinterest is it's women." And they don't want to pin stuff that's masculine a lot of times, regardless of how it looks. And they're like, you have all dark colors, you have like these dark backgrounds and stuff. And they're like, redo your pins. And that was the first step with it. And then the other thing is that you just have to be conscious of what people are looking for on there. And like things like scrap wood projects are huge.
Oh,
Shop
really?
projects, people still find those, but like gifts, DIY gifts, those type of things take off. And I made a wooden cake knife just on a whim, and it started getting millions of hits on Pinterest because
That's crazy.
it was just the right timing for holiday, for people to make gifts. And it's still one of my best website referrals. And it was just a random junk project that I did. I was like, I'm going to make a wooden cake knife. Let's just go for it and film it and put it up there.
Yeah.
And it's just, and I changed, that's actually, when I changed my pins too, I started, I used kind of like a light box with some melamine and whatnot, and just made it really pretty and bright. And man, it just took off. And so long story short, Pinterest, pay attention to Pinterest because, I mean, whether it's YouTube or your website or even social media, you can drive so much traffic from Pinterest.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. I'm going into this year. Like last year I was like, oh, I want to build up Instagram. And then like with all the changes and everything, I'm like, stuff goes so quick. Like, is there a way to have more permanent? Like obviously like I need the website to build up, but then getting into the Pinterest world, I'm like, oh man, this is cool. Like you can put something up and like you said, it can go viral, and it can also, you can like recycle the content and all kinds of crazy stuff. It's really neat.
And that's what you kind of mentioned also with the website too. And that's what I tell people all the time. And that's my biggest advice whenever I'm talking about it, is you have to have a website, because there's so many people that are just single social media platform, whether it's Instagram or whatnot. But when you're looking for a brand, and actually in my talk at WorkbenchCon, brands want to have that jumping off page, and YouTube allows you to do that, to have your links and evergreen content. But something like Instagram, and don't get me started on TikTok, because I don't even use it. I refuse to at this point, and I'm going to refuse to until I have to. But there's no way for those to really hold value. Like Instagram, your post is done within 24 to 36 hours. So the value isn't there for the brands to work with you. So if you have a website, regardless of what your monthly traffic is, they can link to it. It's always searchable. You never know when it's going to pop off. Just like YouTube. I mean, YouTube videos are crazy these days, where you'll get nothing for a year, and then all of a sudden they just come out of nowhere. And I have a couple that are like that right now, where it's like, this is a terrible video from like a year ago. Why are people paying attention to this now? But it's evergreen, and it's all linked. It's all got affiliates. And if you don't have that mainstay, you're really shorting yourself to work with brands.
Yeah. Do you have any folks that like you would recommend for people like to watch that are good at thinking ahead and just on the business side of things outside of like what you're doing?
Yeah. And so as far as going against the grain, one of my good buddies, and I lucked out because I have a great like tribe of friends. And Tamar from 3x3 Customs is one of those. And we all talk every day, and she goes out there and she does what she wants to do. And a lot of people try to chase trends. They try to mock what anybody, or not mock, but try to kind of do what everybody else does. And she kind of goes out there and does her own thing. And her enthusiasm is one of those things that draws people in, because there are so many people out there doing the same thing. And if you're dull in any way, if you just don't have that enthusiasm, everybody can tell, and you're not going to go anywhere. And she's always excited about stuff. She's always trying new things, and it makes her so marketable. And her channel has blown up on YouTube and Instagram. And I had to force her to get a website also a few years ago. And I mean, it's obviously working out for her. But if you're not entertained by what you're doing, if you're not captivated by it, then nobody will want to work with you, essentially, because there's some people out there with some pretty big accounts that, unfortunately, you can tell that they're sort of chasing what people are telling them to do, and they're forcing their content, and they're struggling, and they're upset about it, and they don't understand why they're not enthusiastic about what they're doing anymore. So keep happy at what you're doing, and then it translates over.
Yeah. In the I don't know the right word for it, but the more home renovation DIY like crafter space, like who are the people that you like watching as well?
One of my favorites is Charlotte from At Charlotte's House.
Okay.
Because she she's so personable with everybody. And it's funny because everybody's mom, everybody's wife, everybody watches her channel. She does stories the entire time. There's no filter with everything. She shows everything, which, I mean, you can decide if you want to do that or not. Right. But she's so approachable that everybody just, it's almost intoxicating that you want to go and see what she does next.
Yeah.
And it's entertaining because you kind of feel like you're a part of her life. And she does, and of course she's got all of her projects in there and all of her decor things in there. But it's how she presents herself on these channels and how approachable. It's kind of like Evan and Caitlin also. Yeah. Like, you want to be like good friends with them. And it's not, they don't take themselves too seriously, but it's calculated. And I know you've had them on, and I've heard them on other shows too. It's very calculated how they do things because it makes them approachable and it opens them up to a bigger audience. They're likable.
Yeah. Because they had talked about, they shifted about, I think this time last year, from just the straight tutorial to it's personality driven. It's like, you're going to come hang out with us, and like the build is almost an excuse just to.
Yep. That's exactly it.
Then it's cool because it frees you up to do whatever you want because people are tuning in for you and not for the project.
And that goes back to the whole don't chase what other people are trying to make you do. Yeah. So I do and I mentioned this a little bit before, but I do the tool review for Home Depot. And there's the debate all the time of, are you going to do a tool review, or are you going to try to like force a project essentially to show this tool off? And you can always tell the morale of people that are forcing and trying to make a project every quarter to use these tools, when really just use them organically, do a review, and then if you can plug back to them, backlink to them later, then that's fine. And I've also found, and this is a tip for people that want to sell affiliate link stuff, if you embed tool links tutorial, the people that are coming to take a look at that stuff, they're there for the tutorial. They're not there to buy tools. But if you do a tool review, those people are coming to buy tools. They're looking to find information.
Right.
And so the conversion is through the roof.
Yeah. That's super smart. Well, man, thank you so much for jumping on and chatting. I don't want to take a ton of your time because you do have your hands in lots of different places. So you mentioned WorkbenchCon a couple times, and I know probably a lot of people listening are going to go, when is your talk? Do you know off the top of your head?
So I'm at Friday at 10 o'clock. And so it's a brand panel also. So okay. I'll have Craig Tools, Calavera Toolworks, DFM Toolworks, Wall Control. And then we actually just added Rockware the other day. And it's not even on the website yet.
That's awesome.
So I'm pretty excited about it. And the other thing is we're going to do a big giveaway with the class too for people to come, and it's sort of an incentive. But I mean, I asked them if they want to give something away to people that attend, and they have come up with, I mean, it's easily a couple $1,000s worth of stuff for a giveaway for one person. So I'm excited about that. But you have to take the class to win it though.
Right. And then just on your side of things, the website, is that the best place that you send people?
Yeah, absolutely. That or Instagram. So it's lazyguydiy.com or at lazyguydiy, everywhere under the sun on social media, except for TikTok, because I hate TikTok.
Oh man. Yeah. No more dancing side-by-side videos.
No, none.
That's cool. Well, man, thank you so much for jumping on and chatting with me.
Thanks. I appreciate having me on.
Yeah, totally.